The podcast is progressively becoming more awesome. It started out awesome, and now it's reaching like, I'm not going to say...
I'll say it.
It's like Radio Lab if Radio Lab was in their mother's basement.
Welcome to PolyPsych.org.
Almost there, just one more time.
Welcome to PolyPsych.org.
I'm going to interview you about this because this topic is awesome. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Well, all right then. Yeah. Shoot.
I was born ready. You kidding me?
I'm going to ask you these questions.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
All right. Definitely.
Still ready.
Okay. So there's a famous 1995 study about
Hello,
heart.
who is this?
This is Anthony from the PolyPsych podcast.
What is that?
Yeah, you're not on the phone and you can see me. So you shut your mouth. Unbelievable.
Okay, I'm ready.
So there's a famous 1995 study about heart and Risley. It demonstrated that by age 4, children from poor households hear 32 million fewer spoken words than their better off peers.
That's my attempt at whistling.
Did you focus?
Okay, that is astonishing. 32 million fewer words.
32 million fewer words. So
Come on.
Here's my question to you.
Yeah.
Should the government balance out the income inequality or institute programs that help children have the same resources? I mean, maybe not institute a program. Oh, maybe
Like government funded programs,
Yeah.
like Head Start.
yeah, like a Head Start type of situation, but one that kind of balances it out because education is supposed to be the great equalizer.
Yeah.
So if this is the only thing that poor people have to really step up is education or entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
This is the only way you can escape your income bracket that you were born into. Should the government take that into its hands?
Oh, I got one for you. So,
You have to answer mine first.
no, I am.
Okay.
No, I'm saying like I got a little tidbit for you.
Okay,
The government recently, and I just recently found this out because I'm pregnant and I've been going to these like WIC and where else? It was just doctor's appointments. Anyway, they got these posters up about parenting classes, and there's a whole program now. DSS even funds it. Before baby's born, you go to these parenting classes.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a whole program though. It's like it's more. I think it's structured. I don't know exactly what all it entails. It might not have anything to do with like the education of your child, but if it has something to do with like early parenthood to help prepare parents that may not have been ready or prepared for a child at the time. Now they are. Like they could be through this class. And maybe that'll help with the education part because they'll already have like the basic stuff down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's so far that's all I can think of that they already have.
Mm-hmm. So you and I had two radically different like upbringings, even though like we were probably relatively about the same income bracket, like growing up. So my mother was also fairly poor when we were growing up. Mm-hmm. But I remember these long drives from Baltimore to DC, and she would talk to me the entire time. So literally my entire childhood, I was like speaking with my mom, like actively listening and speaking with her. So I was conversing the entire time.
Brilliant.
And these 32 million words, yeah, we passed that.
You probably, yeah,
we
I imagine
absolutely
you did.
passed that. So I would imagine that like there are some situations or circumstances where you can foster a specific relationship with your child to develop this thing. And
It's a matter of
like,
what you can do.
Yeah.
When you're in that low income, it's a matter of do what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Like I truly think that like the heart and the intention of the parent means more than the socioeconomic status. Mm-hmm. Like your mom may not have been like super rich, but she did what she could with what she had, which was a long drive from here to there. And she worked with that. She was like, okay, I can use this to help my child. And she did. That's awesome. And for my mom, we had the opportunity to use, we went to the YMCA after school when I, for a couple of years I think it was like second, third, and fourth grade. And that was my opportunity to get past my issues with asthma and get some physical activity in with friends and really come out of my shell that I was in post trauma as a little child. So I came out of my shell a lot during that time, and that was really valuable to her and to me.
You have to be more creative if you're in a lower
Yeah,
income bracket.
like
You don't
that,
have the
yeah.
options.
You just got to work with what you got, and it does make it harder. But if you have the intent to do as best for your child as you can, then I think they're gonna be all right. Like, I think they're gonna turn out fine. You don't have to worry that maybe I didn't reach that. I don't think that I reached the 32 million extra words as a child. I don't speak as fluently as you do, but who knows what that can be attributed to.
Swag.
Okay.
Swagger.
Whatever. Bluster.
Here's my second question to you. Is poverty in the United States even a real concern anymore? Not to be insensitive, but our poor are much more well off than the poor in, say, India. In those countries, if you're not in the top income bracket, your life sucks. So there's a saying that the rising tide lifts all ships, and Barack Obama said that, where it was like, well, we don't just want to hand out money to the poor. We want the rising tide to lift all ships. So we want everybody to be better off. Has the tide risen in the United States to the point where the poor aren't really poor anymore?
Yes, to some degrees, but you still have those deep trenches that are there.
The homelessness,
the true homelessness, the ones that, because while we do have this system in place for the poor not to be as poor, there are a lot of steps in between Trump and like on the streets for America. Other countries aren't like that. It's usually like you're here or you're there. There's no in between. Okay. So to be poor in America, not the worst thing in the world until you get down in that trench. And then it's nearly impossible to get out of for reasons unbeknownst. I haven't studied enough to figure that out.
So do you believe in the deserving poor versus the undeserving poor? Because there was a philosophical argument that some poor people are undeserving of our help. If you think of like the drunk who spends all of his money versus the person who's struggling with like 3 part-time jobs. One is deserving while the other isn't deserving. So do you subscribe? I'm assuming you don't, but do you subscribe to the notion of deserving versus undeserving people?
No. I think everybody deserves a shot, and I can understand.
Oh, challenge accepted.
I can understand.
Everybody deserves a shot?
I'm going to go with everybody except for the ones the very, very few who are like, I love being out on the street. Mm-hmm. I can imagine there is like a minuscule amount of people who say that living on the streets is better for them because they can do what they want to do without having the responsibilities and the burden of life. Mm-hmm. Even those guys, I'm having a hard time just letting them flounder, because I feel like if they only knew, or if they had that help, if it was like forced upon them, then they would accept it and change. But
all right, so let's move the line up to see where you draw the line. Okay. So we don't want to put anybody on the street. And let's say that poor, as in like you do not have any extra income. Like you are barely surviving. You walk into your apartment and you have close to nothing in there. All right, you don't have any children, but you are devastatingly poor. Like you got nothing. You open a refrigerator, you are for sure barely surviving. Mm-hmm. All right. Now you are a person who gambles regularly. Mm-hmm. All right. You're not an addict, but you like to gamble a lot. You drink as well. Okay. You drink a lot. You're also a criminal, like a career criminal. Like you're not breaking into people's houses, but you will steal things. All right. There's a government program where we can give this person $2,000 a month. It's called the Jumpstart program. You can get $2,000 a month. This is a mythical program. Okay. You get $2,000 a month for 2 years in order to jumpstart you into society. So do we give this person the $2,000 a month?
This is $2,000 cash money.
$2,000 cash every month.
And there's no there's no accountability.
So there was a study.
I have a problem with that.
Hold on. There's a study though. I know you're thinking there should be strings attached. Mm-hmm. There was a study where they showed that people in Africa. There was a book by Tamoyo, I think. I know I'm butchering that name, but it was she was talking about African inequality or African poverty rather, and the way we give to charity and for African states. So you would give them like 10 roofs, or you would try to give them stuff, but like there would be strings attached and they were exploiting it. Versus if you just airdrop money into a village, if you just go door to door and hand out cash, or they had cell phones and they would wire transfer money to people, just no strings attached, buy what you need. and it literally like just changed the game.
Really?
Like, because they know what to buy. Like, you get them a tin roof, well, thanks. But you
That's
gave me
fair.
a fish versus letting me buy my own fishing rod and then going to fix it. So if you give a person $2,000 cash, you might actually lift them out of poverty. Like $2,000 a month for 2 years, and all of a sudden, they put themselves through medical school. They figured it was going to be gone like in 2 years, so they needed to go to medical school, and they finished a 4-year program.
Or they're
in 2
like
years.
a drug addict.
Or they're a drug addict, and that's the
fritter
risk we
away
take.
The 2 years.
That's the risk we take. Going back to the deserving versus undeserving poor. Is this person deserving of
That person is still. I still consider them deserving, but they need help. They need to get through their addiction first before you can just go give them $2,000. It's like handing them the needles. Like you knock on their door every day.
So
you go to a straight. You go to no. They are deserving, but I'm saying like you give them the correct tools. Like if you knock on a full on addict's door who just had their last fix, but they're already like trying to figure out what next or when next. Like, and you knock on their door with $2,000 cash, you might as well be handing them needles and like
so
spoons.
we're not changing their addiction. I'm saying as of right now.
No, I'm not okay with that.
Okay, so
they're not undeserving. They're deserving of help.
They're deserving of help and also the 2,000 afterward.
No, not necessarily.
Then you just want to get them off their
They're deserving of like a chance to get off the street, to get out of their addiction. Again, the problem being, do they want to stop?
Okay.
There's a huge there is always that threshold. You find somebody, you come up to somebody and you ask them, "Hey, you're addicted to heroin. Do you want to quit?" And they're yeah, but not really. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking they want to quit, but they don't because they feel like they can't. Or like they can't. Maybe it's one of those things where like I try to put myself in their shoes. Like I wouldn't want to quit and go through these ridiculous withdrawal sickness, and then come out the other side still owing, thousands of dollars in debt, still not knowing. Maybe I've lost my kids and they're in the foster care system. There's so many like bricks still piled on my back, on top of me being freshly recovered. Like, I'm only physically recovered. I'm not emotionally and mentally recovered from drugs.
So if they decide
they still have that, and they don't have that help, that bolster support system, then you're basically not, they're more deserving than that. Like, all people are deserving of the shot to get their lives on track. Just because you fall, maybe you choose the wrong thing. It could be anybody. People look down on drug addicts like, you chose your lifestyle. You put the needle in your arm, or you put the stuff up your nose. Like, yeah, but you choose to get on the road without a seatbelt on every day, or you pick up a pack of cigarettes and smoke those all dang day, and nobody bats an eye. Everybody has their own stuff, their things that they do to get through their lives every day. Just because they chose the wrong thing and it got them stuck, it doesn't mean that if they choose that they want out, that they're not deserving of it because they made one mistake. That's screwed up. People are still people, and there should be good people out there willing to overlook it and set aside their judgments and say, "Let me get you out of this. I can do it if you just grab my hand."
That's a philosophical argument, but it does have basis in reality, because Republicans do want to test people on welfare or government assistance to make sure that they're not on drugs.
Right.
And if they are on drugs, then you're off of the program.
Right. That's fair.
You just say that's fair.
Yeah, I think it's fair. Like,
That's interesting because you're towing the line between the two, where it's like they are undeserving while they're addicted.
My issue being you are addicted. You are an addict. While you are okay with being an addict, you do not need monetary and extra government help that people are having a really hard time getting, and they're in another stage of their lives. They're in another stage of their come up. I feel like I'm in not higher stage, just a different stage of my come up. I'm not in the addict status. I very well could have been, but I'm not. And therefore, so it's my turn to get some assistance while I'm on my come up. That's what this great country is good for. But this person who is an addict they'll drain the resources. So we have to plug the dam first, and their hole in their dam is the drugs. Plug that first and get it all sealed up, and get them ready to like function properly.
So for the United States, which philosophy do you think is better? The purely capitalist, like pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You got yourself addicted. You get yourself out of this. I'm not giving you a dime of anything. That's not what this country's for. You go out and dig a hole for someone, apprentice for someone, do something, and then make it so that your kids aren't in the same situation you're in? Or do you subscribe to the more socialist idea where it's like the most you can make in a year is $200,000. All of the excess income is going back down to the poor and going into government programs to help people so that they are able to make $200K a year so that everybody has an equal opportunity. Do you think that we should go with the capitalist method where it's like, dude, you got it? Granted, these are purely capitalist and purely social. Yeah. We have a mixed economy, so it's a little bit of both. But like, do you think that we should go back to this capitalist mentality of like, dude, I got no help for you. You better go plant some potatoes. Or should we go with the socialist aspect where it's like you have zero chance of being a millionaire? That's not a thing in the United States. Like the most you can make is say, I don't know, 80,000. You make 80,000 a year, and the rest of it goes back to the government to recycle back into the country.
So I don't like either extreme.
This is why we have a mixed economy, because there is half the nation says capitalist, the other half says socialist.
They are extreme.
10% says capitalist, 10% says socialist, and then everybody else in the middle.
Okay, so show me one person who's ever made. If they can make 80K, then they can make $1 million. Because I've never known anyone to be able to make 80K that hasn't had a little bit of the pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality in them. So why put a cap on a person who has the right mentality? But then again, people who have this whole pull yourself up wholly by your bootstraps, show me one person who's done that, who's never had an ounce of help and got themselves to the very, very top. Not an ounce of help. Not one person to pat them on the back. Not one person to give them $5 for lunch one day. Not one person to, pass them the notes that they might have missed in class the other day. They had no help whatsoever, because you pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Like, what is the definition of not having any help? Are we Are we talking not getting that $5 for lunch, or is it not having a rich mommy or daddy to float you through school? And they got through school and they started a multi-million-dollar business, and that's awesome. But they also had help. They have help somehow, whether they were raised in a good environment. Maybe they were raised in a nice, healthy, supportive, loving environment, so they didn't have to deal with abuse or trauma or childhood stress that children have no business dealing with in low-income families. But either way, the whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps thing is very arrogant. For anybody to think that they have done anything all by themselves is ridiculous.